The sharp clang of metal on metal echoed through the exchange laboratory as Daniel Nelson sliced his hand open on the jagged edge of the alien equipment he'd been trying to repair. Blood immediately welled up from the deep gash that ran diagonally across his palm, dripping onto the pristine white floor in stark crimson droplets. "Damn it," Daniel hissed, clutching his wounded hand. The cut was deep. He could see the white flash of bone beneath the parted flesh. The 4 alien exchange students in the room froze. Their pale blue skin seemed to grow even paler. Zirek, the tallest of the group, backed away with his 4 eyes widening in horror. "Medical emergency," Zirek shouted, his voice rising to a pitch that hurt Daniel's ears. "Human bleeding." "Contamination protocol," Daniel watched in confusion as the aliens scattered, moving with surprising speed for beings with 6 limbs that seemed perpetually uncoordinated on Earth. Lyra, the only female in the group, slammed her hand against the emergency button near the door. "Wait, it's just a cut," Daniel tried to explain, but the aliens were already engaging their emergency protocols. Red lights flashed overhead as the laboratory's containment system activated. Airtight seals hissed into place around the doors and vents. "Why are you all freaking out?" Daniel asked, pressing his uninjured hand against the wound to slow the bleeding. Mork, the youngest of the alien students, was frantically typing on his communication device. "Calling for evacuation team. Human blood is highly infectious to most species. Everyone knows this." Daniel couldn't help but laugh despite the pain. "My blood isn't infectious. I just need to clean this and get some stitches." The 4th alien, Plex, who had been relatively quiet until now, stepped forward cautiously. "But the human medical textbooks we studied indicate that you are extremely vulnerable to infections. Your species lives in constant fear of bacterial and viral contamination." "Well, yeah, infections can be dangerous," Daniel admitted, "but we have ways to prevent them." Daniel looked around the lab, spotting the first aid kit mounted on the wall. "Can one of you grab that for me, the white box with the red cross?" The aliens exchanged nervous glances before Lyra carefully moved toward the first aid kit, keeping as much distance from Daniel as possible. "Thank you," Daniel said as she used one of her middle limbs to slide the kit across the floor toward him rather than hand it to him directly. He opened the box with his uninjured hand and pulled out a bottle of isopropyl alcohol, some gauze, and bandages. "What are you going to do with those primitive supplies?" Plex asked, his head tilted in curiosity. "Watch and learn," Daniel said, unscrewing the cap on the alcohol bottle. "This might not be your advanced medical tech, but it works." Without hesitation, Daniel poured the clear liquid directly onto the open wound. The aliens' reaction was immediate and dramatic. All 4 of them recoiled, making high-pitched sounds of distress that Daniel assumed were screams in their language. "Are you insane?" Zirek shouted, his voice trembling. "You just poured a caustic substance into your open flesh." Daniel winced as the alcohol burned, but he continued cleaning the wound thoroughly. "It stings like hell, but it kills bacteria. It's just alcohol. Alcohol." Mork repeated, his translator struggling with the concept. "The recreational neurotoxin your species consumes for pleasure, you put that in your wounds, not drinking alcohol," Daniel clarified, applying pressure with the gauze. "This is isopropyl alcohol, medical grade. We use it to clean wounds." The aliens watched in horrified fascination as Daniel expertly wrapped his hand in gauze after the bleeding had slowed. "That will prevent infection until I can get to the medical center for stitches," he explained. Lyra stepped forward, her scientific curiosity apparently overcoming her fear. "You willingly endured pain to prevent a possible future infection?" "Of course," Daniel said. "Better a little pain now than a serious infection later." Zirek's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. "This contradicts our understanding. We were taught that humans are exceptionally fragile when it comes to microbial threats." "We are vulnerable to infections," Daniel acknowledged, "but that's exactly why we developed these methods. Our immune systems are strong, but we help them along." "Fascinating," Plex murmured, moving closer to examine Daniel's bandaged hand. On our world, such practices would be considered barbaric self-harm. How do you treat wounds, then? Daniel asked. We have symbiotic microorganisms that immediately seal wounds and prevent any foreign bodies from entering, Mork explained. Pain is unnecessary in our medical practices. Daniel nodded. That sounds convenient. Unfortunately, humans have to do things the hard way sometimes. The laboratory doors suddenly hissed open, and Professor Klein, the human supervisor of the exchange program, rushed in, followed by 2 alien medical staff in full containment suits. What happened? Professor Klein demanded, looking from Daniel to the alien students. Just a cut, Professor, Daniel assured him. I've already cleaned and bandaged it, but I'll need stitches. The alien medical staff approached cautiously, their scanners extended toward Daniel. He poured alcohol into his wound, Lyra informed them, still sounding shocked. The older of the 2 alien medics stopped in his tracks. Is this true? Standard human first aid, Professor Klein explained casually. Nothing to worry about. The alien medics conferred briefly in their native language before the younger one addressed Daniel. We would like to document this practice for our medical academy, if you permit. Daniel shrugged. Sure, though I should really get to the Human Medical Center soon, Professor Klein nodded. I'll take him. Perhaps this could be a learning opportunity for your students, Dr. Vrex. The older alien medic considered this. A supervised observation of human wound treatment would be valuable for their comparative xenobiology studies. And that was how Daniel found himself leading a procession of fascinated alien students to the Human Medical Center, his hand throbbing but his mind amused by their reactions. At the medical center, Dr. Sarah Phillips examined Daniel's hand with professional efficiency while the alien students observed from a respectful distance. You'll need about 10 stitches, she informed him. The cut is deep but clean. Good job with the first aid, as Dr. Phillips prepared the local anesthetic. Zirek stepped forward. You will use another chemical to prevent pain. Yes, Dr. Phillips said. Lidocaine, it will numb the area so I can stitch the wound closed. But you did not use pain prevention when applying the alcohol, Mork pointed out, clearly confused. The alcohol needs to be applied quickly, Daniel explained, and the pain, while intense, is brief. For stitches, which take longer, we use anesthetics. Dr. Phillips injected the lidocaine around the wound, causing Daniel to wince slightly. The alien students watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. Does your species always balance pain against efficiency this way? Lyra asked. Pretty much, Daniel said as the numbness spread through his hand. We avoid unnecessary suffering, but sometimes a little pain is the fastest way to prevent bigger problems. As Dr. Phillips began suturing the wound, Plex moved closer, his scientific curiosity evident. The thread material you are using, what is it? Synthetic absorbable suture, Dr. Phillips replied. It will dissolve as the wound heals. And how long will healing take? Zirek asked. The stitches can come out in about 10 days, Dr. Phillips said. Full healing of the deeper tissues will take several weeks. Weeks, Mork exclaimed. Our healing takes hours, Daniel laughed. Well, we can't all have symbiotic microorganisms. After the procedure was complete, Dr. Phillips wrapped Daniel's hand in a clean bandage and gave him instructions for care. Keep it clean and dry. Take these antibiotics as directed. Come back if you see signs of infection, redness, swelling, increased pain, or discharge. The alien students listened intently, taking notes on their devices. As they left the medical center, Professor Klein suggested they continue the discussion in the university cafeteria. This seems like an excellent opportunity for cultural exchange. Over coffee for the humans and nutrient solutions for the aliens, the conversation deepened. I still don't understand, Lyra said. If your species is so vulnerable to infection, why don't you have more advanced methods of prevention and treatment? We do have advanced methods, Daniel explained. Antibiotics, antivirals, sophisticated surgical techniques, but sometimes the simple approaches are still effective. Like purposely causing pain with chemicals, Zirek asked skeptically. The alcohol doesn't just cause pain, that's a side effect, Professor Klein interjected. Its primary purpose is to kill microorganisms that could cause infection. Plex leaned forward, his four eyes intensely focused. This suggests a fundamentally different approach to medicine. For us, all treatment must be painless. For humans, you accept certain discomforts as part of the healing process. Exactly, Daniel said. Sometimes the most direct approach is best, even if it hurts a bit. Mork, who had been quietly contemplating, suddenly spoke. I have accessed your historical medical databases. Your species once used even more painful methods: cauterization with fire, amputation without anesthesia, trepanation. Daniel winced. Yeah, medicine has come a long way for us. We've tried to eliminate unnecessary suffering while maintaining effectiveness. What I find most interesting, Professor Klein added, is the cultural misunderstanding. You believed humans feared infection to the point of paranoia, while we actually have developed rather straightforward ways of dealing with it. Our educational materials emphasized human vulnerability, Lura explained. The emphasis on hand-washing, vaccination, antibiotic use, it suggested a species in constant fear of microbial threats. Daniel laughed. Well, we do take those things seriously, but we're not paranoid. We've just adapted to our biological reality. The conversation continued well into the evening, with both species gaining new insights. The alien students were particularly interested in human pain tolerance and risk assessment. 2 days later, Daniel returned to the exchange laboratory, his hand bandaged but otherwise in good spirits. The alien students greeted him with what he now recognized as their expression of respect, a slight forward tilt of the head with eyes partially closed. We have been researching human medical practices, Zirek announced proudly. Your approach is more sophisticated than we initially understood. Thanks, I think, Daniel replied with a smile. Lura approached with a small device in one of her middle limbs. We developed this for you. It's a modified version of our healing technology adapted for human physiology. Daniel took the small disc-shaped object curiously. What does it do? Place it on your wound, Plex explained. It will accelerate tissue regeneration without interfering with your natural healing processes. Cautiously, Daniel removed his bandage and placed the device on his stitched wound. A gentle warmth spread through his hand, and he watched in amazement as the redness around the stitches visibly reduced. That's incredible, he said. Thank you. It's a cultural exchange, Mork said proudly. You showed us your methods, we share ours. Professor Klein, who had just entered the lab, beamed at the scene. This is exactly what the exchange program was designed to accomplish, learning from our differences. Speaking of differences, Zirek said, we have a proposal for a new research project: comparative pain management across species. Daniel raised an eyebrow. As long as I'm not the test subject. Everyone laughed, the aliens producing a melodic trilling sound that Daniel had come to recognize as their expression of amusement. Over the next few weeks, the relationship between Daniel and the alien students deepened from professional courtesy to genuine friendship. They worked together on several projects, including one that combined human antiseptic techniques with alien regenerative technology. A month after his accident, Daniel was working late in the lab with Lura when he noticed her favoring one of her lower limbs. Are you okay? He asked. A minor injury during physical adaptation training, she admitted. The Earth's gravity affects our movement in ways we're still adjusting to. Let me see, Daniel offered. Reluctantly, Lura extended her injured limb. There was a small puncture wound that was leaking a pale blue fluid, her species equivalent of blood. Where are your symbiotic microorganisms? Daniel asked, confused that the wound wasn't healing. They're less effective in Earth's atmosphere, she explained. The oxygen concentration inhibits their function. Daniel thought for a moment. Would you like me to try a human approach? I promise to be gentle. After hesitating briefly, Lura nodded. I trust you. Daniel retrieved the first aid kit and carefully cleaned the wound with a much milder antiseptic solution than alcohol, explaining each step as he worked. This might sting a little, he warned before applying the antiseptic. Lyra flinched but remained still. It's not as painful as I expected, based on your reaction to the alcohol. I chose a gentler option, Daniel explained with a smile. We have different solutions for different situations. As he bandaged her limb, Lyra watched with interest. Your hands are very precise despite having only 5 digits, Daniel laughed. We make do with what we have. Thank you, Lyra said as he finished. This is not how I expected to experience human medicine as a patient rather than an observer. Sometimes that's the best way to learn, Daniel replied. The next day, Professor Klein announced an opportunity that excited everyone in the exchange program. The Intergalactic Medical Association is holding a symposium next month on comparative medicine, he told them. They're particularly interested in case studies of cross-species medical practices. I've submitted our research on antiseptic techniques versus symbiotic healing, and it's been accepted. The alien students buzzed with excitement, their skin changing slightly in hue, a reaction Daniel had learned indicated positive emotions. Who will present? Zirek asked. I thought a joint presentation would be most appropriate, Professor Klein said. Daniel and Lyra have first-hand experience from both perspectives. Daniel looked at Lyra in surprise. Are you up for it? Definitely, she replied. Our experience could help bridge medical understanding across species. The following weeks were filled with preparation for the symposium. Daniel and Lyra worked closely together, developing a presentation that highlighted both the differences and potential complementary aspects of their medical approaches. What I find most interesting, Daniel said during one of their preparation sessions, is that both our approaches solve the same problem, preventing infection, but from completely different directions. Yes, Lyra agreed. You attack the potential pathogens with chemicals, while we enhance the body's natural barriers and healing responses. And both work in their own way, Daniel added. There's probably a middle ground that's even better than either approach alone. The day of the symposium arrived, and Daniel found himself standing in a massive auditorium filled with medical professionals from over 30 different species. The diversity was staggering, beings with various numbers of limbs, sensory organs, and body structures, all united by their interest in medicine. As Daniel and Lyra took the stage, he felt a moment of nervousness that quickly gave way to excitement. This was what the exchange program was all about, sharing knowledge across the stars. Distinguished colleagues, Daniel began, today we present a case study in cross-cultural medical understanding. What began as a misunderstanding when I cut my hand in the laboratory and shocked my alien colleagues by cleaning it with alcohol has led to a deeper appreciation of our different approaches to healing. Lyra continued, humans have developed aggressive external methods to combat infection, while my species relies on internal symbiotic relationships. Both approaches evolved in response to our different biological needs and environments. Their presentation included video of Daniel's wound treatment, as well as demonstrations of the alien healing technology. The audience was particularly fascinated by the hybrid approach they had developed together. By combining the human antiseptic approach with our regenerative technology, Lyra explained, we've created a treatment method that works more effectively for both species than either original method alone. During the question and answer session, a reptilian physician raised an interesting point. Have you considered that the human tolerance for pain in medical treatment might be an evolutionary adaptation? Perhaps the willingness to endure short-term discomfort for long-term health benefits provided a survival advantage. Daniel nodded. That's an interesting theory. Humans have always had to balance immediate comfort against longer-term survival. Those who could endure necessary pain probably did have better outcomes. An insectoid medical researcher added, my species also uses chemical antiseptics, but we apply them with nanobots that simultaneously deliver pain blockers. It achieves the same result without discomfort. That sounds like a technology humans would appreciate, Daniel replied with a smile. Perhaps that's the next step in our research. After the symposium, Daniel and the alien students found themselves celebrated as pioneers in cross-species medical exchange. Their research was published in the Intergalactic Medical Journal, and several other universities expressed interest in establishing similar exchange programs. Back at their university, Professor Klein called a meeting to discuss the next phase of their research. "The success of your presentation has opened up new funding opportunities," he announced. "We've been granted resources to establish a permanent cross-species medical research center here on campus." The alien students expressed their excitement in their various ways. Zrek's skin rippled with color. Mork made a series of rapid clicking sounds. Plex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, and Lyra performed a subtle swaying motion that Daniel had learned was her species' equivalent of applause. "That's fantastic news," Daniel said. "What will be our first official project?" "I thought we might develop that hybrid antiseptic/regenerative treatment for wider application," Professor Klein suggested. "It has potential to benefit numerous species." "I had another idea," Lyra said. "What if we focused on understanding pain across species?" The symposium made it clear that different species have very different relationships with pain, especially in medical contexts. Daniel nodded enthusiastically. "That's a fascinating area. Humans accept certain types of pain as necessary, but we're constantly looking for ways to reduce suffering. Understanding how other species experience and manage pain could lead to better approaches for everyone." "An excellent suggestion," Professor Klein agreed. "We could start by mapping pain responses across species and identifying cultural versus biological factors in pain management." Over the next 6 months, the Cross-Species Medical Research Center became a hub of innovative research. Daniel and the alien students worked with visiting researchers from a dozen worlds, each bringing their unique perspective on health, healing, and the body. One afternoon, as Daniel was demonstrating proper wound cleaning techniques to a group of gelatinous beings from a water world, Zrek approached him with news. "The Galactic Science Foundation has recognized our work," he announced proudly. "They're presenting us with the Harmony Award for advancing cross-species understanding." Daniel grinned. "That's amazing, all from a cut hand and some alcohol." "It was never about the alcohol," Lyra, who had overheard, added. "It was about being willing to learn from each other's approaches rather than assuming our own was superior." Professor Klein joined them, bringing a bottle of what looked like champagne. "I thought we might celebrate in human fashion, though this is a non-alcoholic version safe for all present species." As they toasted their success, Daniel reflected on how far they had come from that day in the lab when his simple first aid had caused such alarm. "You know," he said to his alien friends, "on Earth we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Our different biologies created different necessities, which led to different medical approaches." "On my world," Plex replied, "we say many paths lead to the same summit. Different methods can achieve the same goal of healing." "I like that," Daniel said. "Different paths, same summit." The award ceremony, held at the Galactic Science Foundation headquarters, was attended by scientists and medical professionals from across the known galaxy. Daniel, Professor Klein, and the 4 alien students stood together on stage as the Foundation director presented them with the Harmony Award. "For demonstrating that understanding across species begins with respecting different approaches rather than fearing them," the director announced, "and for developing new medical technologies that benefit all sentient beings, we present this award to the Cross-Species Medical Exchange team." As Daniel accepted the award alongside his alien colleagues, he thought about how a simple accident had led to this moment. What had begun as a misunderstanding about human medical practices had evolved into a deeper appreciation of how different species approach the universal challenge of healing. Later, at the reception, Daniel found himself standing next to Lyra as they watched representatives from dozens of worlds interacting, sharing ideas and experiences. "When I first saw you pour alcohol on your wound," Lyra admitted, "I thought humans were either incredibly brave or completely insane." Daniel laughed. And what do you think now? I think, she said thoughtfully, that humans are practical. You do what works even when it's uncomfortable. And I've learned that your approach has its advantages too, Daniel replied. Sometimes we humans are too quick to accept pain as necessary when there might be gentler alternatives. Professor Klein joined them, beaming with pride. The Foundation has approved funding for 10 more exchange programs based on our model. Soon, students across the galaxy will be learning from each other's medical traditions. That's the real achievement, Daniel said. Not just developing new treatments, but changing how different species think about medicine. As the celebration continued around them, Daniel looked at his hand, the scar from his injury barely visible now thanks to the hybrid treatment they had developed. From that simple cut had grown not just new medical techniques, but new friendships and a deeper understanding between worlds. A year later, Daniel stood in the newly expanded Cross-Species Medical Research Center, watching as human and alien students worked side by side, learning from each other's approaches to medicine and healing. The center had become a model for similar institutions across Earth and beyond. Lura, now serving as co-director of the center alongside Daniel, approached him with excitement. The trials of our hybrid regenerative antiseptic have been completed. It's been approved for use on 17 different species. That's fantastic news, Daniel said. From a misunderstanding to a medical breakthrough, not bad for a year's work. And it all started with you horrifying us by pouring alcohol into your open wound, Lura reminded him with the trilling sound of her species' laughter. Daniel smiled, thinking of how far they had come. What had begun as alien students thinking humans feared infections had evolved into a deeper truth that different approaches to healing could complement rather than contradict each other. As new students, both human and alien, filed into the center for orientation, Daniel prepared to tell them the story of how it all began with a cut, some alcohol, and the willingness to learn from different approaches to the universal challenge of healing. Welcome to the Cross-Species Medical Research Center, he began. Let me tell you a story about how a simple misunderstanding led to one of the most significant medical collaborations in history. And as he spoke, Daniel knew that the journey that had begun with his injured hand was far from over. It was just the first step in a new understanding between species, one that recognized that while their bodies might be different, their desire to heal was universal.